thank you everyone for coming again. I just briefly wanted to mention that, Women in Immersive Tech, we are actually a European nonprofit organization to grow the community, foster exchange between women working in the fields of immersive technologies. And we started creating those meetups with the Goethe-Institut Montreal, together with Tatjana over here. And I am Sarah-Lisa Vogel. I'm one of the co-founders of Women in Immersive Tech, and I'm really, really happy that I had the honor to walk into the Goethe-Institut Montreal and then together with Tatjana initiate these meetups. We are already at our 7th meetup today, and so Tatjana is the program curator of the Goethe-Institut in Montreal. And she also not only run these meetups, all of these meetups together with Women in Immersive Tech, but she also even carried the meetup further into the North American region and basically looped in a couple of her colleagues. And today we have the honor to host this meetup with Annette Klein from the Goethe-Institut in Boston. And Tatjana, you look kind of distracted. That's why I didn't ask you to come on stage. If you want, you can just raise your hand now that you look a bit more active over there. Thank you for doing this with us, and thank you for bringing in Annette for this edition of Connect. And so Annette Klein, she is the host of this meetup and also the program curator of the Goethe-Institut Montreal. And she will introduce to you Leonie Bradbury, who curated this edition, who curated this meetup, and also will do an introduction for us to it. So thank you so much, Annette, and the stage is yours.
Yeah, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me. As Sarah-Lisa said, I'm Annette Klein. I'm program curator at the Goethe-Institut in Boston, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to the 7th edition of Connect. As there are probably some new faces here, I just wanted to quickly introduce the Goethe-Institut. We are the cultural institution of the German Federal Republic, and our mission is to foster international cultural dialogue between Germany, Europe, and the rest of the world, which in our case is North America. And we strive to offer platforms like this one, where there's exchange and connection. So before moving on and passing on to Leonie, I just want to take a chance to thank my colleague, Tatjana Brown. She's done a wonderful job of starting this initiative with Sarah-Lisa Vogel and Farina Hamann. And I think it's just really important to have a space like this to connect, for women to connect over topics in immersive technologies. I also want to thank Sarah-Lisa and Farina for making this meetup so special. As you can see, they've put tons of slides and sculptures around, and they've also managed the presentations, and they've also helped all of us, the speakers included, to feel comfortable in alt space. So please give a shout out to them. Send a couple of emojis their way. I also want to thank the Connect partners from Women in Immersive Tech Europe, and also Felix and Paul Studios, who in the background are helping this program run smoothly. So for today's meetup, we invited Leonie Bradbury, who is the chair of Contemporary Art Theory and Practice and curator in residence at Emerson College here in Boston. And we invited her to curate the topic and the speakers. Leonie directs Emerson's platform for visual art called Emerson Contemporary, which focuses on presenting and commissioning new media art, performance art, and emergent technologies within a socio-political context. The Goethe-Institut Boston also knows her from her previous role as Director of Art and Creative Initiatives at Hub Week, which we participated in a couple years ago, which is an innovation festival here in Boston, which showcases intersections of art, science, and technology. And we know her as a very important influence on the contemporary art scene here in Boston, and someone who we often turn to as a partner and also as an expert. So we're excited to have her here today, as well as her colleague Rashin Fahandej and Rebecca Merlich joining us from Vienna. And they'll be sharing their work around immersive storytelling. So thank you for coming. And now I will pass on to Leonie to introduce our speakers and to get the program going. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Annette. I really appreciate the generous introduction there, and I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you to Women in Immersive Tech and the Goethe-Institut in Boston and Montreal for inviting me to curate this event. Today's talk is titled Immersive Storytelling, How Emerging Media Create Agency and Social Change. And it features multimedia artists Rashin Fahandej and Rebecca Merlich. The speakers will address how they use immersive storytelling as tools for co-creation, healing, societal critique, and social change. So when Annette Klein invited me to curate this event, I immediately thought of my colleague, Rashin Fahandej. In 2020, Fahandej was the lead artist at the American Arts Incubator in Austria, where she launched the Future of Inclusion Lab, an experimental laboratory to incubate ideas and project prototypes that aim for collective and radical reimaginations of our social systems. It continues on today as a virtual program and an ongoing incubator centered on art, emerging technology, and community co-creation as collective tools to address local and global social justice challenges. It is in the context of this incubator that Fahandej met Rebecca Merlich, and how, in part, we're all gathered here today, as Rashin suggested that we invited Rebecca as the conversation partner for our meetup today. So I'm now going to introduce Rashin, and then after Rashin's presentation, I will introduce Rebecca, and then after that, we will have a moderated conversation, and then also we'll take questions from the audience. So Rashin Fahandej is an Iranian-American multimedia artist, independent filmmaker, and assistant professor of emerging and interactive media at Emerson College. Her projects center on marginalized voices and the role of media, technology, and public collaboration in generating social change. A proponent of artist ecosystem, she defines her projects as poetic cyber movement for social justice, where art mobilizes a plethora of voices by creating connections between public and virtual spaces. She's the founder of A Father's Lullaby, a multi-platform co-creative project that highlights the role of men in raising children and their absence due to racial disparities in the criminal justice system. In A Father's Lullaby, Fahandej critically examines the structural racism of the U.S. prison system and the impact of mass incarceration on lower-income communities, as well as arguing the case for its transformation through care and love and a shift in the nation's philosophy. Please join me in welcoming Rashin Fahandej.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Leonie, for your kind introduction, and for all our amazing hosts for inviting us today. This is quite exciting initiative, so I'm very happy to be joining you. And yes, let me amplify my voice. Can you hear me now?
Amazing.
Is that better? Okay, wonderful. So I was saying that I'm quite excited to be here. Thank you, Tony, for your introduction. Thank you, Lisa, Annette, Tiana, Farina, everybody. This is quite exciting initiative, and I'm very happy to be joining you today. So as my artistic practice and scholarly interest meet at the juncture of art, technology, and social justice. And the processes are centered on community co-creation. And the way that I come to the art and technology specifically is with this responsibility, ethical responsibility, to think about, as a woman, as the experience of, I grew up in Iran, in a marginalized community. So my life experiences is definitely informs me and my artistic practice. So I feel rather than thinking about the trend, there is an ethical responsibility to be at the forefront of using the technology, of creating a spaces for other marginalized groups to share their voices, and not in the space of consumption, but actually in the space of future imagination and creation. So when I was thinking about, always my research and artistic practice is around a social justice issue, whether coming to it from a poetic lens or coming to it from immersive spaces and embodiments. And as Leonie mentioned in her introduction, as a socially engaged artist, that I center community and their access to the tools and the technology as a forefront, I came to really consider what it means to create and define my practice around art as ecosystem, and to define that as a network of cross-institutional collaboration with multiplicity of narrative, and center that on investigating social systems and generating the art in a way that animates public site and online platforms in order to shift the dominant narrative and urgent social justice challenges. And I really find the emerging technology and community co-creation process to be central in disrupting the traditional power dynamic and allows new form of cross-sector collaborations that they are centered on personal stories. And what I hope to happen that in that act of storytelling that happens within the community by sharing the tools, by creating access and equity, this act of storytelling, the personal, the political realities of these intersectional issues such as race, gender, immigration, and class becomes fluid. And from that fluid space, this idea of art as ecosystem arises. So for that, like since 2016, I'm mainly will be talking about one project, which is A Father's Lullaby. I led this social research and artistic production that is centered on underrepresented narrative. And I call it an initiative rather than an art project, even though it is an art project. The program or the initiative centers racially and systemically marginalized populations, and it seeks to demonstrate an interplay between art and technology in addressing systemic social justice challenges. So Father's Lullaby is a multi-year creation, and it materializes as an ongoing series of immersive, interactive public installations, tool and tech sharing and storytelling workshops, a participatory augmented web AR, and also in the past 2 years, an XR co-creation pedagogy or initiative in college. And again, going back to that XR field and thinking that XR field is emerging. So it is crucial that diverse voices and creators shapes its development. So it become an equitable and just world. And, when we think about new investments that is happening, such as the new Meta investment and coming from Facebook, I feel like there is more urgency for creators with diverse voices to be, coming forward and making work and bringing that criticality and that lens into this space. And in the Father's Lullaby, especially through the Emerson College initiative, I'm really seeking to provide that technology. So students and fathers, formerly incarcerated fathers, and probation officers come to the classroom. Actually, let me see. I have not asked for slide change. Okay, but thank you, Farina, for moving that forward. So maybe to tell you, I only had a few examples. The installations, this was the latest installation at Ars Electronica. The project won the award of distinction in the sound, music and sound art category. So I was quite excited to be able to be there and to realize this large format. It was a 5-channel video and 9-channel audio with 3 touch panels. And maybe I kind of a step back and tell you a little bit about this. What you see on the right side is a volumetric capture using DepthKit. And whenever you see fathers who are incarcerated and hearing their voice, what you would see is that the medium, the technology becomes the medium to really help me move beyond that sort of brings a kind of poetry and beauty into this space and create this space of presence and absence that gives more agency to the voices of fathers. So if you look to that side on that wall, you would see a figure sort of emerging from this space. That's again like volumetrics filmmaking. That's where you directly see a father talking about his experiences, being away 22 years and taken away when his sons were 6 months old and then coming back when they were 22. But being really mindful of that colonial approach that we had, that we wanted to objectify otherness and objectify trauma, and using technology to allow us to give a different agency to voices, to marginalized voices. And also, if you look on the other image next to on the left side, there are particles there. I'm also really interested in using various mode of technology or tools. This is stop motion animation, literally animating steel dust as a sort of metaphoric element that comes and goes and washes over the images in this 26-minute experience. So it's a 26-minute experience in 5 movements. This is one version of it, but also A Father's Lullaby exists as public site intervention, just as audio. So the idea is that wherever the project goes, it becomes a call to the public on that area to create this really, to collect lullabies, memories, and ask people to really come to this issue, to this social justice issue, this trauma, through the space of love and care. And again, like care rather than criminalization, or even sort of reflecting on the history, looking at it instead of a blame, looking into future that we can build together and bringing people from perspectives and experiences to work. So I have partners on this project from Federal Probation Office, from community organizations, and I'm a bit mindful of time. So maybe what we could do, we could go to the next slide. And I will tell you, this is about the pedagogy. So another reason I'm actually in the space of teaching is that I feel there is a great power. I really consider the pedagogy as part of my artistic practice, because there is a potential criticality in the space of education that we are shaping the future. And in the past 2 years, throughout the COVID, it was the first semester that I was teaching this class. I was new at Emerson the first year, teaching emerging and interactive technology. And so we started this community co-creation class that brings the student, fathers, and probation officers. And again, thinking about access and equity that is centered on emerging technology, community co-creation as a methodology for production, and researching the issue of mass incarceration through the data as well as the personal stories that people and fathers who are involved. So if I can have the next slide. And so this is one example of the projects that it was created. So the first year we were working on VR, and then we had to shift mid-semester, and we wanted the projects to be accessible and available. So what ended up, the teams of a student and father created a series of AR, augmented reality projects. These are postcards that can be sent, and then each one represents one father's stories. The second semester, we were able to sort of readjust ourselves and fully go online, meeting with fathers. And now fathers have access to 360 camera, Health Brush, and Oculus Quest, and they work with their children. So the co-creation is happening not only with the student, but also it becomes a mean, this creative process becomes a mean for them to connect with their own children or reconnect with their own children. So really thinking about the potential and the possibility of the process of art. And another reason for that is that if we envision a different world, if you have different ideas or we feel urgency of reimagining our future, it is crucial that we also consider the processes, because often the processes are embodiment of the exact mode or more modalities that we critique. So I'm kind of like quite a believer in that we really need to redesign our processes, not just imagine a different end. And in the space that I'm coming from, I think community co-creation and really being mindful of the possibility and the power of creative process and the emerging technologies as a tool to help us manifest that. I'm going to stop there, and I'm excited to have conversations later in the Q&A to go deeper maybe in some aspect of this. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rashin. This is such an inspiring project, and I know I've known it for a number of years now in all of these different iterations, and I continue to be impressed by it. And yeah, delighted to hear more about it today. So it is my pleasure now to introduce our second speaker, Rebecca Merlich, who's an artist specialized in digital art and architecture. Her work is strongly influenced by alternative ways of living in society and the transgression of socioeconomic conventions and new forms of art production that employ new technologies. For Merlich, the future lies primarily in working with virtual political spaces that address issues such as gender, biopolitics, feminism, social inclusion, migration, and diversity. At this year's Arts Electronica, she presented The City as a House, an interactive visual novel created in the game engine Unity that explores new forms of human equality and socioeconomic injustices in urban life. And Glitch Bodies, an interactive game project that resulted in an experimental animation that presents non-heteronormative gender positions and proposes queerness as a political attitude and a critique of power as the project imagines a life beyond heteronormativity. So please join me in welcoming Rebecca here today.
Now you can unmute it again. Hello, yes, thank you for the nice introduction, and I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, amazing.
Okay, great,
We
great,
just
great.
had an echo before.
Yes, and I was thinking, oh, somebody has an echo. And it was me. Yeah, sorry for that. Yeah, thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me today. And of course, thank you everyone for coming into AltSpace and Zoom tonight. Since I'm thinking also some people are also joining our Zoom. I'm joining from Vienna today, where I currently live and work at the University of Applied Arts in a new study called Experimental Game Cultures. And I want to dive in free of my recent projects, addressing to this evening's topic of immersive storytelling. Okay, yes, great, the slide. So Glitch Bodies is one of my new projects, which will be released on the 26th of January. And I'm working since 1.5 years with different communities in Vienna, Berlin, with communities in Bangkok together. And Glitch Bodies is a new visual novel I'm creating, in a co-creative approach with all the protagonists in the game. And portals of glitch, sucking the player in a dreamscape of emotions, feelings, and hopes. Glitch Bodies is a new interactive visual novel game and also a short movie created in an innovative approach. So the game is, I see the game as a safe platform for an infinite number of non-heteronormative gender positions share a meaning of queer in the sense of political attitudes towards critique of power and a life beyond heteronormativity. So now I have already 35 protagonists, which are involved not only as protagonists, but also in the writing of the screenplay and the virtual representation of their digital selves, as I call it. And as an artist tackling the very personal topics of Glitch Bodies, it is very important for me to involve all the protagonists in the whole process. So and also with all the Corona issues, it was really hard to organize meetups. So we also used somehow digital tools to meet. Also, when the Austrian government let us, we met in person, and I would do trips to Berlin and Vienna to meet up with all the protagonists in a safe environment, and to organize several workshops where we would co-creatively write the digital scenes, concepts of the digital environments, as well as we discussed topics like hierarchy, scale, closeness of the player to the 3D scan representation of a real person. So Glitch Bodies, it's not a porn game, it's no ego shooter. One shall not kill, it's not a multiplayer. It's no 8-bit, it's real, fusing virtual, digital, and real. And it has no end. So it's non-linear, like humankind. And also the whole project, at some point, we will release 16 scenes on the 26th of January, but it will, I think, also be continued later, and more protagonists could gather in the Glitch Bodies game and be added to the game in newer versions. So this generates and opens up, for me, new perspectives for the player, for you. And the whole project is also instantly familiar. It's full of ambitions, wishes, and desires of the protagonists through a very strong, sensitive collaboration with all important issue of all gender equality, gender transformation, and also the definition of gender. So for me also, and for all the people involved, as more protagonists gather in Glitch Bodies, the resolution of gender in the world rises higher and higher. The game consists of 3D scans, as I mentioned, of the protagonists, game environments, and some personal data of each and every protagonist, which can be narration, stories, poems, songs, artworks. So it's kind of also a digital archive, always evolving as more stories are told in the game. Yeah, so please, next slide. This is the more commissioned work. And I wanted to add something also, I forgot, to Glitch Bodies. Now we have a result of already 16 game scenes, but the game and also film production wants to question the conventional filmmaking and creating co-creatively more inclusive digital worlds as a parallel world to the unjust system we live in today. So I think the most important part is the strong and sensitive collaboration. And yeah, now we can look at a commissioned work I did for the STARTS initiative, and in collaboration with Ars Electronica this year. The STARTS initiative is a program funded by the European Commission aiming to bring artistic perspectives into the innovation process to address current challenges in today's society. And I did an online exhibition format, something new, like a custom programmed WebGL. It's called Sustainable Futures and New Pathways to Innovation. And it is also an interactive online experience. It's different than Glitch Bodies because it's a WebGL, so you can kind of access it from your browser. And the topics, or it explores 3 concrete challenges tackled by artists who have already participated in STARTS. And yeah, with the help of my team and me, a custom format for 21 artist positions was created. And it was challenging. It was a very challenging project. Maybe some of you know it's hard to do a WebGL project and still have a great representation of art on the internet, I think. And so try to create digital environment in a very inclusive way. So people with disabilities could also easily enjoy the online exhibition. Also elderly people who are maybe not that used to play a game with the keyboard and the mouse could move to the camera symbols in every scene to get automatically the perfect view in every project. The 21 artist positions were narrated as well. And we created an additional menu where the player can jump from one project to the next without having to walk in the game environment. So it was kind of to make the project more inclusive. And it will be released in December this year, so we're almost done. And the 3 topics and environments are tangible data, sustainable futures, and navigating the digital realm. And so these were the big topics where environments were created to tackle the topics, and also every art installation in this world, I would say it's kind of a world building process, should be represented in a good way, or also a way an artist would approve how they are represented in the space. And I see it more as a new way of curating, find a way of online exhibitions that they're in the spaces that are more custom made, and also custom made for the artist. Yes, so we can move on to the last slide. Great. So last but not least, I want to show you maybe one of my most personal artworks, City as a House. The City as a House is based on a housing experiment of myself, living and working over a certain period of time in the metropolis of Tokyo without renting a private apartment. So I decided that living, working, and eating can also take place in public spaces. And as a white bisexual young woman with European background, I know to test it how surviving in a turbo-capitalistic city would look like. And And I decided I no longer need private spaces in the future. So somehow I made the city my own. And the visual novel consists of 5 scenes representing 5 rooms, functions of replacing a private apartment. So sleep, eat, pleasure, bath, and leisure. Open up digital space for the human user, for you, while you play the game. And which he or she can relive the created experiences and open up new spaces. So I slept in public spaces, capsules, hotels. I bathed in public centers, worked at convenience stores and shopping malls, and stored my possessions all over the city. And I ate at street food stalls, restaurants, ramen shops, family restaurants, and so on and so on. And with all these the data, I created a visual novel with the game engine to get the player into this world and sharing my experiences, letting the player relive a version of it. So it's also interactive installation, but I also made some kind of short movie out of it, and you could really enter 5 different representations I designed, which consists of the data I gathered living this kind of life. I think my time is up, and I'm really looking forward to the Q&A session. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Your projects are so innovative, and I'm really excited to see the new work when it comes out. And I look forward to experiencing that. Rashin, do you want to come back to the front so we can see both of you? Okay, so I was thinking, for the sake of time, maybe I just ask 1 or 2 questions and then we open it up to the audience. My first question really is for both Rashin and Rebecca, in the sense that both of you are disrupting traditional power dynamics in your practice by using technology to give agency to others. So I would like to ask each of you to speak a little bit more about this practice of shared authorship and co-creation and the rewards and challenges it brings in relation to your art practice.
Would you like to move forward, Rebecca, or do you?
Should I? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you...
Yes, I mean, I have a lot of work to do it, but I was, for Glitch Bodies, for example, I was shocked how, for example, normal film contracts with actors would look like, and how you give away your body, even if it's in a video or as a 3D scan, to the artist or the director easily. So I kind of worked on or questioned even this contract all together with a team of lawyers with the protagonists together. So we kind of made a special contract where every protagonist as well gets, when the project is finished, a video of their representation in space, which is like 5 to 10 minutes long for them to have and also to publish, of course. And I think it's, for me, also the 3D scanning process of a body is very intimate, and then also connected to a real person and a real story behind it. So it was a very sensitive collaboration, and I think which makes this project very innovative in a way that we continue working together. It's not I get the data and then it's finished. It's always like back and forth, showing how the representation is made, if the person is still okay with it. And also with this co-creative writing workshops, I would say it helped a lot, and we discussed a lot. And what does it mean putting a digital scan or a 3D scan of a protagonist, telling their personal story into a space where everybody could listen to, of course. So I think it was a lot of talking, a lot of discussion, a lot of meeting. So everybody could be on board, and even if they change their mind, it's still possible to kind of get out of the project. I hope this won't happen. I hope I have all the wishes and desires of the protagonists, but there's always like this option of discussing and talking. I think, yeah. But it's of course
Thank you,
challenging, but
Rebecca.
very rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And especially I feel in the space of digital bodies, there is also so much less or no, maybe those of you who know the policies and laws, we are so much at the beginning, and there is so little written on that I think is crucial to bring these voices and bring this sort of collective actions and giving agency to, you know, who we call protagonists or subjects of a narrative or a story. Yeah, so crucial. Thank you for that. You know, I feel when we look around ourselves, we do see that sense of urgency, right? That we do see that sense of, and I feel in the past 2 years, it has been amplified the way that we went through the pandemic period, and then the uprisings, and, you know, especially kind of thinking about that's the racial issues everywhere, the economical issue, and disparities is everywhere, but it's quite accentuated in United States. So I feel when we are thinking about future imagination, there needs to be intentionality in the way that we consider every step of the process. And where I was seeing a lot of conversation to be happening was in the end result, right? So like how more people are included in different areas, but really kind of considering the creative process has this sort of extreme power. And what does it mean to share that power? What does it mean to really intentionally look at every step of the way and think about it as a potential rather than a given space? So I think that's how I came to really considering the co-creation processes, because I think you spend as a creator a long period of time in the making, and for me that has sort of a rippling effect. Like, I don't think this is only for creative process. I think in any spaces, I'm connected to many different institutions and board of different spaces, and I definitely feel that this is something that it needs to be implemented in all areas, right? That we reconsider the process and we reconsider disrupting the power dynamics in a way that allows for more diverse visions to come in, because we are not complete otherwise, right? So it is thinking about the challenges of it. It is challenging. Thinking about time and money, yes, like it takes that. It takes time. It takes more resources. It takes more devotion. It's confusing. It's more challenging. But that's the price. Like, if we want to really and I say these not in a bad way. Like, I feel like all of these are the excitement of the work, the bringing people from diverse perspective into a space is the excitement of the work, because that's the reality of where we are. And if we want to move beyond that sort of binary point of view of one versus the other, we need to allow for spaces, whether it's of creation or whether it's agencies and companies. We need to allow for that diverse experiences and point of views to coexist. I'm centering on community co-creation because even though I create these sort of artistic, poetic work, they are very much centered on documentary. So definitely speaking to that traditional sense of photojournalism or documentary filmmaking, and even considering our vocabulary, how we use our vocabulary, how can we shift and move beyond using a subject versus like a co-creator, and recognizing the lived experiences of community members, those who are, going through that experiences as an expertise, and not just, the person who knows a good the professional expertise of technology. I hope that answered. I'm happy to, to talk more, but I'm.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for that. Well, both of you also, through your work, are in the process of reframing the status quo and destabilizing dominant power structures. Rashin, you mentioned the ethical responsibility as a woman maker to be on the forefront of technology, to create and reimagine spaces. And likewise, Rebecca has mentioned gender equity as a significant factor in their work. So can each of you speak to the role of what I'm going to call aesthetic activism and the role that it plays in your practice? If you agree with that. I mean, that's my reading, obviously, of your work. I see of it as a type of activism.
Yeah, for sure. I do. Like, I'm happy if Rebecca, if you want to move forward, and then I can come back. However. Should I continue?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I feel like collecting all these protagonists and stories and putting it on multi-platform outputs, also using kind of my position at some art venues to give space for all the protagonists and involving them also in the presentation of the game. I feel like maybe it's some kind of activism. I mean, I think for me it's kind of a really word, being an activist. So I hope I am in some way, but of course there are people more dedicated to these issues and bringing themselves into danger. So, but like this working together, and even when it's hard for me as an artist to be kind of representing maybe an artwork, I even try to use artificial intelligence as a narrator, putting all the narrations and could I say it, like all the text data coming from all the protagonists, putting it into GPT-2 artificial intelligence to kind of get a text, an intro and outro, because I don't want to see me in the forefront of the project, but putting narrations on to people involved in a project. So I think, yeah,
And for
Sorry.
maybe
I just wanted to mention, maybe it also fits like that you could answer the previous question together with a question that just came through the Zoom. So we're not 100% sure, but we were thinking it was for Rashin. So the question is, what is the data you have for people who interact in these environments, and how do you measure engagement and impact? And do you have data on individuals?
So what was the
just
first
leaving that
section of the
question
question? Sorry, Lisa, could you repeat the
yeah,
first part of the? I couldn't
of
hear well.
course. What is the data you have for people who interact in these environments? It could be that it meant, what is the data you have from people? Not 100% sure about that. It came through like that here. And how do you measure engagement and impact? And do you have data on individuals?
Thank you, Sarisa. So maybe like I want to go back to the activism part, and then sort of continuing with this question. You know, there was a time that I decided that I am going to take ownership and sort of take spaces or make spaces that I feel there is a need or room for them without apologies, right? So I feel a lot of my projects before were really kind of looking into these spaces of social emotional presence of us like as being, whether it's women issues or and also the multiplicity of layers of characteristics that we each have in our life. But I feel like there is also, you know, this is very interesting, Leonie, that you talked about, because a lot of time you feel there is this sort of spaces of silos between different proficiency, or if you're an activist versus you're an artist versus if you're a social engaged artist, and the spaces are defined in different way, and I'd love to sort of maybe kind of expand this sort of body of self and do take ownership of it. So I think with this body of work, when I moved from being a studio artist to a community engaged artist, that definitely, that sort of action and taking on that amount of energy. So for example, when you see between 2017 to 2000 to the currently, I have installed 9 different installations, different variations and of Father's Lullaby in different public sites. And with that, like with every aspect of it, there is a new connection with the community. There is a new engagement and processes. And it's not the same. It's not that I do the same thing. They would shift and vary depending on the partners, depending on the work that it sort of forms, and the people inform the processes again. And that's how the co-creation is being made. So, but then, you know, 80% of my work is outside of the visual representation. So it is a lot more of investment, that it doesn't go necessarily into the creation of this poetic artistic experience, but into community building. And in terms of the data, and I do consider it as an activism, like I think the poetry is an activism in itself, or and these sort of claiming these bodies, and because I don't feel there is one form of activism, and there are varieties depending on the area that we are sort of in, the medium that we are using, or the profession that we are. We could bring that sense of urgency and engagement with the reality of our life and what is happening currently, and respond, not just only respond to it, but bring criticality and future imagination into it. And with the data, some of it, you know, I have not been earlier on. A lot of it was more based on one-on-one. I do try to make sure that every installation there is an public engagement, in a way that I make efforts to bring different communities into the space. Intentionally at the beginning, when I was creating the project, the first installation of A Father's Lullaby was at a community community art center, that it was right at the center where we were creating the work, and the community were basically living around it, and that was quite intentional. That's why I talk about the hyper locality of the work. The work connects people in the local area. And then the side that I have not been as much able to develop, and that's my effort in the next year, is this sort of the second arm of the project. That idea is that we do this hyperlocality, and the hyperlocality is connecting the community, looking at the environment. It's not just the members and the community, but also the landscape of the city and the neighborhood, and all the, you know, intertwine of people that they are working there. On the other side is the virtual side, an arm of the project. That, like, how is it possible to manifest that sort of poetic cyber movement that I talk about? How is it possible to connect these localities together to sort of visually represent that sort of movement that we talk about, that I'm talking about, that the movement of thinking about looking into social justice issues through the lens of love and care. And I think where I have the data more directly is actually in the classroom. And this semester is the third year that I'm teaching the cause, and that sustained relationship is really important, because with the other fathers and community members that I work with, there is certain capacity. So some I still am in conversation, we talk, there is a sustained connection, but not with everybody. I can't keep that sustained connection. But in the classroom, what is interesting is that it affords us that one long semester, that there is a community that is built through this sort of using technology as a tool for thinking and exploration. And what another effort that I'm doing is that next semester, we are starting a research and working group that consists of all the fathers and the students that they've been participating and they want to join the continuation and keeping the efforts sustained. So, and then working on the impact of the projects, working on relationships and what these work could, how this work could impact policy. There is a relationship with federal judges, and they came to the student presentation. So there is a lot of layering, look like from interpersonal, from the impact on the students, on fathers and their relationship with their children, to think about system and policy, and definitely it's not a 1 year effort, right? I've been working on this for 5 years, and I see this as one of my main ongoing project. And the other effort of it is this sort of internationalization of the work, to think about beyond borders and approaching this as a philosophy. This is like a philosophical approach to community building and policy building, and how is it possible to think about racial bias and using again, like emerging media and tools, and bringing many people across platforms and across different so the installation at Ars Electronica was really kind of I think a change that I'm hoping again, like with that internationalization aspect of it, and new collaboration is being developed. So thank you. Yeah, sorry, I feel like I spoke long.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if there are comments from the group.
I think everyone can just like keep listening. It's also interesting and so fascinating. But yeah, let's see if there are any more questions. We're already a bit over time, so I also don't want to keep you too long, but let's see if there are any more questions in this room. Otherwise, yeah, from my side, like, thank you so much. Like, this was also interesting. I'm definitely gonna look up more of your work.
We did have one question from the Zoom, so I don't know if we have time to answer that one quickly, or if there's people in the room who would like to ask a question, that would be great as well.
Yeah, there's also one hand raised.
Yes. So I would give the microphone to Lawless. Should be now able to speak.
Can you hear me? Amazing work, really, really lovely. I got in here a bit late, but where can I go to see some of this beautiful work? And also I wanted to ask, how long from point of idea conception till final kind of immersive area, how long did that take you? Because I know you said you got one of them is an ongoing process, but how long does it take from initial idea, scratching down notes and stuff, and then starting to build, starting to get the content, the people? How long did that take from kind of start to finish? That's what I want to ask.
Is that for both of us?
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Rebecca can go first.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I think the city as a house, it took me about 2 years. Just just kind of, yeah, it was funny because I wanted to, I had to go back. I was living in Tokyo. I wanted to go back, do a project there. So I got some funding of the Academy of Fine Arts to go back and do the experiment. And then it's all me almost a year. And then it took me 1 year to finish the project. So I think 1.5 years to 2 years until I have some finished project I could kind of exhibit. But it's always like Rashin said, it's developing further, of course. But also with glitch bodies, it took me 1.5 years. And in 2 years, we will also have a VR version of it. So kind of, yeah, probably 2 years. Yeah. Rashin.
Rashin?
Yes. So for me, it has been, because I talk about that urgency of not waiting for for things to happen and really kind of moving forward and letting the events to happen or fall after you in a way, because otherwise I think there is then you have to just wait and yeah. So one thing that it was crucial at the beginning of this process, which was like access to the community. I was living in Boston for quite a long time, but I got a residency with the mayor's office in Boston, and that was like a 1 month, 9 months, and then it became sort of like a 1 year. And also, so that was crucial in thinking about being embedded in community center, getting access to a lot of different, looking at the city through the lens of departments. Like I followed along many different city departments to just look at how they're functioning, how they're working, from the police department, from women advancement, from city planning. So that aspect of a city opening their door and thinking about creative process as this valuable lens to come and think about social challenges through the department was critical. And I really highly recommend, if anybody is connected to the to the system and cities, I think that's really eye-opening, especially if you are talking about social issues, to really be able to have access to the system and work together, not just so working, talking at them. But throughout has been a lot of micro grants that like allowed me to create different prototypes. So for example, the first initiative, the city of Boston gave me a really good access, a long time processes, and I created 3 different projects. I applied for other grants, and at the community center, we created 3 different media projects for different ages that they were involved. So part of the process of me thinking and researching was actually providing resources to the community and thinking with them through that process. After that, it has been a lot of micro grants, again, allowing for different prototypes to happen through Boston Center for the Art. Upwick, actually, Leonie curated my work in 2018, and we created a shipping container prototype. The idea that the art goes to the community, not the community going to the institutions necessarily, because every public site, again, like every installation is a call. So there is a website that you could record your own voice and participate and become part of this movement through your own childhood memories and experiences or reflections that you have on this. So yeah, so it's been that way. Or like, for example, the pedagogy, I've been doing that pedagogy throughout my artistic practice. Any micro grant that I get, all of it goes into the production, right? I'm not making money from this co-creation process. I am investing it in the project. But as soon as I become a full-time faculty at the Emerson College, the second thing, the second semester, I proposed this project again because of the urgency, thinking that now I have access to an institution.
I love what you guys have done, and the reason I'm asking it is because it makes me think about. There's a few ideas I've got myself, but obviously I'll talk to you maybe another time. But there's a few ideas I have myself about mental health, and the way you've done it immersively is the way I'm thinking to try and do it myself. But today you gave me a lot of inspiration, like for a way of doing it and making it a bit more immersive and you know, involving the community, because
wonderful.
Meetup's quite huge, and the way you've done it here, it really, like, so people can actually be immersed in it and understand it a bit more instead of just being there and being a bit of a spectacle. So I really appreciate what you both have done, and yeah, just congratulations on the work. And I'd, like I said,
Thank
I'd
you
love
so
to
much.
see it. But,
like, definitely reach out, right? You know, definitely reach out to us. Like, there are some things on my website that I'm happy to share, but I'm also happy to connect, give feedback on projects. I would recommend on mental health. There is a VR project. It's called Manic VR. That a sister from the point of view. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So it's interesting to really kind of think about. I also, yeah. So we could definitely, if you reach out, I'm happy to talk further.
Okay. No, thank you so much. It was, like I said, it's really inspiring. Like I said, immersive storytelling, and just the way the visual representation, it really kind of it really looks quite capturing. I'd love to have gone to it, to be fair, but obviously I didn't have the chance. But thank you so much for sharing your work. It's really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks both of you.
Thanks, everyone. And I think, Tatiana, did you want to jump in at this point? I saw you had your hand raised.
Apologies, I'm on the Zoom at the same time. Yes, I had actually another question from the audience. And I think that unfortunately Karen Feinberg, who asked the question, is needs to leave, but I'll ask it anyway, so it'll be on the recording, and then you can go back to it. So her question was, what is the age range generally engaging with your co-creations? I think this is aimed at Rashin. Do you need headsets to engage? One thing I learned in a recent dynamic VR day organized out of DC was a workshop tied to VR and seniors. This researcher discovered the actual headsets got in the way of the seniors' hearing aids. So interesting work. Having said that, do you specific intergenerational projects and, let's say, VR used for oral history projects? So there's a lot of questions. I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
You know, we're happy to respond to them later too. You know, definitely I am interested in multi-generational, and I think it's a very bringing different generations together and doing that, you know, forward thinking or even collaboration is quite exciting. Most of time in my process, it happens through other mediums, right? So when I go to the community, I never go with cold. Like, there is always an agency, a community that is already very much embedded and connected with the people and community. The same way when I'm thinking about young age, at the community center, when I started 2016, I created projects and I was directly working with younger age. But right now, through this co-creation process, is actually fathers that they work with their young children from 4 or 5-year-old to, you know, 14, 15-year-old. And I'm very much remote. I'm not there. And it's really fascinating and exciting to see the fathers work together with their children, and they work through the tools. So I have a lot of handout and tutorials that videos that I share with them, but I actually tell the fathers, give agency to your children, because I'm sure they would figure it out, you know, much faster. I have an 8-year-old, and she and maybe one tool that I think it's very, very easy to get access to and enjoy and feel that intuitive space of three-dimensionality is actually tilt brush. So I was quite disappointed that Polly went away, but I think tilt brush has been a really intuitive, beautiful tool for fathers and their children as a first platform to work together. The other one also is 360 camera, because that puts you there. Process is fast, and I find these both to become, you know, most of the fathers that I work with, I have to teach them how to even get on Zoom or like record your voice on the phone, So there is a technology gap, but they're able to really kind of move through this process and record their own videos, record their voice, work with their children, and create tilt brush. Yeah, and I can, again, like Rebecca, we can share our email, or the host could share our email addresses. I'm happy to connect and respond, and excited to know that there are more explorations going on.
So, Rebecca, would you like to say anything to the intergenerational question before we wrap up? Or
I think also as glitch bodies, I tried, of course, first I worked with protagonists I knew and were kind of my age. I'm very happy that it's becoming also very diverse with the age factor. So I think I covered almost everything from a baby to to somebody who is already in an elderly home. So I think for me it's also very important, because also the gender issues, it's not just a young generation problem. There's also a lot of discussion from the 70s, 60s, where I engaged with protagonists who were then also in the discussion of gender issues. So I think it's very important to how also to advertise, or how to bring people into new technologies, because there are some easy tools. And I think that there's a big barrier to start or to engage with new technologies. I think as an artist, I'm really eager to make it more accessible. Or for a long time, I didn't want to work in VR because I thought it's very exclusive and it's very hard to have a VR headset. But now it's like it's becoming like more and more popular, and it's not so expensive anymore. And I think I changed kind of my opinion on it. So, but it's always good to engage with also people and help them use new technologies.
thank you. And I think maybe on that note of accessibility and equity, we can wrap up our conversation for today. And I just want to thank Rebecca and Rashin, and obviously also the organizers and the moderators for this event. And I think we can continue the conversation on various other platforms. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you to the amazing speakers and the curator. Like, this was fantastic. I learned so many new things. And thank you so much for your openness and like sharing your like really like deep insights from your work processes. This was really, really amazing. A big thank you from Women in Immersive Tech. And I'm gonna leave it to Tatjana probably to like finish the meetup for today. But thank you so much from my side for being here, and thank you for all the audiences. Thank you for everyone for coming here. And I just wanted to point out that Lawless over here, he's doing also great work with the community in South Africa, in Johannesburg. So I think it's really worthwhile to connect further on that. Thanks everyone. And I'm handing it over to Tatjana to have some last words.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks to the speakers. It's been very interesting. I was like jumping in and out of the Zoom and VR. So that was an interesting experience too. I also thank our participants in Zoom and those amazing questions. It was really great to have such a lively participation. So yes, thanks to everyone. And especially thank you to the Goethe-Institut Boston for hosting this. So I would probably give the very last words to Annette. Thank you.
That's kind. I'll just repeat what you said. Thank you so much to the speakers, and to you, Tatjana and Sarah, Lisa, and Farina for organizing this and making this space such a beautiful space for us to meet in. So I think just stay tuned for the next episode. I'm sure it's coming up in the new year. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Amazing. Hoping to see you all soon. Can we maybe like come together here in front of the screen, do a group photo? I took a couple of pictures from all of you, but just for a last second, everyone come together before we jump. Oh yeah, behind me in the best case, so that we're all a bit on different heights. Yeah, it's not
And let
always
the
easy
emojis
to
rain.
get everyone in there. Yeah, exactly. Emojis out, everyone.
Round of emojis.
Nearly there. Oh, I'm in front of you. Maybe everyone behind me try to go a bit to the sides. I'm going to try to be. Oh no!